but, but I liked it just the way it is. And that's what I was saying when someone gave me feedback until I realized that just the way it wasn't that great. And the feedback really helped me improve it. Last week's episode, we talked about what's going to be my chapter in the Believe You Can, people who believe they could, did anthology. And this week, as I bring in the feedback and I start editing last week's version because it wasn't perfect, but as I start editing my work, I realize it's other people's feedback that's going to make it better and, quite frankly, make it something people want to read. And I'm going to invite my partners in, Heidi and Joanna. Come on in and let's start this topic of discussion, accepting feedback graciously.
Hello, Believe Sisters.
Hello, hello,
Hey.
hello. Welcome back, Joanna.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you. And I'm excited to talk about your story, from when- going from working with the military, the Air Force,
Nope,
and
nope.
I'm sorry, that's right.
Navy and Army.
The Navy, but on aircrafts, right? You're working
Yeah,
on aircraft.
Air
Yes.
Force. My husband's over there yelling Air Force. He was in the Air Force.
Uh-huh. But yeah, I love that the leap, the contrast between just the friendly, beaming children's book author and the characters that you've created that are so dynamic and colorful and engaging and appealing to children. I love that. So that is an exciting story. The content in itself, it piques interest and curiosity. Wow. How did you do that? How did you go from here to there? So I love that's a great starting point.
Because I believed I could.
Yes.
So, Francine, how do you want to get started talking about this editing process in your chapter?
Well, actually, what I want to talk about is the power of feedback first. The power of feedback. And I think I told this story last week. When I was doing my speech for the World Championship of Public Speaking, I received some feedback that my grammar was incorrect. I was talking about being in Iraq, and I said when I was in country.
Mhm.
And my evaluator told me that that was wrong. I should say in the country. But what I was saying was in country, which is a military term for in the war zone.
Right. Jargon.
Right. So I had to explain to audience members who didn't understand what in country meant. And that's the beauty of feedback because you take it for granted that you understand what you're talking about. You are deeply embedded and rooted in your own story. And it might make perfect sense to you, but your audience might be wanting a little bit more information. When I wrote my first book and I sent it to the editor, she said, "This is great, but add more to this story and make it more fulfilling for the
Hmm.
audience to read it. They're going to want to know the rest of that story."
So it
I
looks like there are multiple stories within one story, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
And I used to skim over my military story. Yeah, that's right. I fixed airplanes. I went to Iraq. I was on the aircraft carrier. No big deal. That was my job.
Right.
But then all the feedback I got from everybody is that's the part of you people really want to hear because that's what makes you unique and different.
That is amazing that you shared that, Francine, because I just experienced that this weekend. I'm working with the Global Women of Impact in Orlando, the She Echoes speech event on November the 1st. I'm serving as a coach for two individuals. And for one of them, it was the same thing. She sort of glossed over certain aspects of the story and then wanted to focus maybe on the end result, and I wanted to say, hey, let's get a little bit of details, a little development on the backstory, because that will inform us and add substance and context. And that creates impact because we're going to feel it and we're going to relate. We're going to understand why. The why is so important, the purpose, and what makes someone tick. But unfortunately, though, for some people, the story, the backstory is full of has pain and triggers. Unfortunately, yes, we learned the lesson and we're implementing those lessons to help others. But don't look back there. It's not relevant. They feel it's not relevant, but maybe it actually is. So with the feedback, we offer it with good intentions and good graces, but we have to leave it open to the individual as well with what they're going to do with it. If it's better for them to sort of set it aside for their own personal well-being, that's something also we might have to accept.
You bring up something really interesting. I was writing about this earlier. We use the word mindset, and I was like, mind set. So just like we set an alarm clock to go off at a certain time, we have set our minds into certain processes. And when something happens, it just fires off that process and it becomes automatic. We've programmed these things. So I know in my own personal life, I didn't realize that this was a problem that was holding me back when it came to feedback. I would accept what the person was saying, but internally, and sometimes even with the words that I used in the response that I was getting to that feedback, I was internally kind of putting up like a defense wall. Like, what do you mean my stuff isn't good enough? And how dare they say that one part, I was just writing it that way because blah blah blah. Fill in whatever my brain was thinking of. And it took a while for me to realize when I was collaborating and songwriting with other people how this became a problem. Eventually, people just stopped offering feedback, which was horrible because I'm like, you guys, like, I really don't know how to write this part of the song. And they're like, not helping you because you're not going to like whatever it is that we say because you didn't come up with it. So that was just an automatic process that I had until I stopped and identified it and realized that that was going on. I didn't really have any control to stop it. So I wanted to mention this and as part of the conversation as well, that if you're getting feedback on something you've created at some point in time and you feel that defense wall going up, this is just your mindset kicking in. And now that you've identified it, you have a chance to change it. And so what you can do is just go, hey, you know what? This person probably has something really valuable for me to listen to right now, and it's going to help my story or this painting or whatever have more impact because of what Francine was talking about. A lot of times we do have the curse of knowledge and we can't see past certain things. And so having that feedback from other people when it is coming from the right place and not somebody just trying to tear you down, which most often is not the case, that is going to help you improve. So be open to it. When you feel that defense, say, nope, this is time to open the gates and let those words come in so that I can consider them and decide if it's something that I do want to change or not. Because ultimately, it's still up to you. Just because somebody told you to make the change also doesn't mean you have to do it.
That is true. That is very true. You don't have to make changes unless it's a grammatical error.
Right?
Yeah,
Medical,
yeah.
there are exceptions. And I want to piggyback. I want to yes and to what you said, Heidi, because of the work that you do with our inner judge and with people, feeling that feedback might be attached to judgment. But before that, Francine, tell us about this gesture. Is that narrow focus and,
Yeah, or you can't see the forest because the trees are in the way. When
uh
you have, like, you know, my own story of being in the military and working on the aircraft and being in all these exciting places, well, that's my life.
yeah.
I can't see it from somebody else's point of view who hadn't lived it. So when I wrote a story, I had to put it out there to people who hadn't lived the story to make sure I wasn't using jargon that they didn't understand. When I explained where my face was when I was hanging upside down in the helicopter, I got feedback. Okay, does this describe the helicopter well enough to understand the predicament I was in when this was happening? Because
Right.
I could see this helicopter in my mind, but how many average civilians know what a shin bubble in a Chinook helicopter is?
uh
I think I've seen a helicopter before.
right. And that's what that those details make it so exciting because you're painting the picture for us. I'm fascinated by women in the military who went through boot camp. First of all, you survived boot camp successfully. You
That's why I did not go in the military. Didn't like gym class, figured boot camp was definitely out.
I didn't like gym class either. I'm not athletic. I just knew that that was an opportunity I needed to take advantage of. And I believed I could, and I did.
right. And that's fascinating. Or just in thinking about, military life, we think about precision, regimentation, and yes, sir. That thing, that's fascinating that that was your world. And so when you describe things as well as the helicopter, you being upside down, I want to see it. So the more descriptive you can be for someone who wasn't there, yes, whenever we have a conversation with someone and we're hearing their story or reading their passage in a book, don't we use our imagination and visualize it too, like a movie? So if we don't provide those details to help with that visual practice, they're not going to be totally engaged and immersed with it so they can experience what we want to share. And how's that really going to touch their heart if half the things are zoop, going over their head? So that's a good reason to add that.
Well, and in several episodes, it's been a couple months, Heidi shared her story. And to see Heidi now as this vibrant coach helping other people wouldn't be as impactful if you didn't know where Heidi came from. And
Yes.
telling that story, we know is painful for Heidi, but she's willing to tell it to help people either going through it or who have family members going through it. So, having been through it herself, she's going to need the feedback from those of us who haven't been through the ordeal to tell her if she is conveying the message because she lived it.
Mhm.
Did I get that right, Heidi?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And sometimes I think that's what makes me stuck as I'm writing the story because I'm like, oh, am I going too deep into this? I don't know if I need to elaborate in this part. And so that's where feedback really comes in handy when you're trying to write a story that has a lot of emotion attached to it. And the other thing is it's difficult for a lot of people is just allowing yourself to be completely authentic in the story.
Yeah.
As a coach, I realized that I have to's not the right story.
You get
right
to?
word. I want to tell the stories of the more difficult times so that you know that I am kind of qualified to lead you through what you're experiencing. Um, but what I have learned over the years, like just beat into me from every employer that I've ever had. It's like, if anyone ever asks you how business is going, you always tell them, great, everything is great. And so I just applied that same rule. It's like, okay, we talk about that, about the business. That's what we talk about when we talk about ourselves. How you doing? I'm doing great. Everything's great. Nothing's wrong. Everything is just peachy. Look how great I'm doing. And that is really, I feel like how I led. That's how I got through that difficult situation. But you know what? I was just kind of like keeping everything that I had learned and grown through to myself. And I wasn't sharing it because I had this belief that you could only put forward like everything's great. Don't tell people the bad things that have happened. And it's true, you don't want to be sitting in a bad thing that's going on and you don't kind of have this resolution of growth, but I've had that.
Yeah.
And so I had to find the courage to be able to tell tell the exciting story. I saw one of my friends do a post like, thank you for all of this bad thing that happened and this bad thing that happened and this bad thing that happened because it just made my story that much more exciting. And
Yeah.
once I was able to kind of see that perspective and also see the impact that opening up about things that people don't normally talk about will have on other people, to get them into action, to start making the change in their life, to get them to believe that they can, is what helped me kind of get past that. And I did need feedback from other people to understand this concept and truly overcome the feedback from other people that said, no, you have to put up this fake wall all the time.
Oh, yes. That's beautiful, Heidi. And you make me think about feedback before we share our message with others. And then another side of that is the feedback after we share our story with others. There was power when we had our live event at the Performing Arts Center in Green Cove Spring, Florida, at the beginning of this year. When you spoke, you shared your story, you step backstage, and before you step backstage, I'm sorry, you started singing the song that represented that journey of that young woman. And then we got to the bridge, and I got to bring out the costume change. You were able to adorn yourself with a sparkling, fabulous coat, scintillating your huge, pimped out hat because you were in that groove. And we joined you with the refrain of the chorus of the song. What was that? I can, I will. What was that?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot, and I'm
Whoops,
like, oh my
sorry.
gosh, what are the words to my own
It's
song?
okay, but that's okay. But we were grooving with you. And you showed us what you became from the little, in the the grunge era of the early and mid 90s with your little plaid shirt. You know what I'm saying? It was a visual spectacle. It was a musical spectacle with your voice and song. And the same with Francine. Francine was Princess Francie. She was in her regal costume with the rainbow tail and the shiny the fringe skirt, and the scintillating green. You had a little preppy striped top, but then a little bling flare on the background, right? We were in character. Of course, I was, sharing Ruby's story, right?
Oh,
And
and Ruby's story, wait right there. I gotta just do a little insert here with Joanna's was so moving. I was not ready for what the story was. And
ah,
it cut much deeper than I thought it was going to go.
mm,
And I was very moved by Joanna's performance. Now you can continue.
thank you. Right, thank you. Right. So together, though, we created something, and then the last song, right? Everybody, you ladies came with me on the celebratory dance song at the end, little disco groove, and it was what's beautiful is the expansion when we share and engage, and we get feedback. Because Francine says, "Okay, I'm not a dancer per se." We
I
all
am
know
a
that she does a
dancer.
belly. Well, you
I
remember
am a
what you
dancer.
said. You remember what you said something about not necessarily, but you got out there and danced. You
I am a
people.
dancer. I'm not a singer.
Right, you're not a sing. Right. You're not a singer dancer. But when the three of us were grooving and encouraging the audience to get involved, that was a beautiful moment that we shared, where our physical bodies, as well as our hearts and our minds, were engaged with these stories. And so I just wanted that was another way of getting feedback. And there were not a lot of people there that evening, but there were people that introduced us to others that can help support this movement of sharing our story and the cause of creativity and in that way. So we want everyone out there to know that when we invite you to be a part of our anthology, and we help you with constructive feedback so that your story can really shine and resonate with people. We're also providing a platform for you to interact with people virtually and live with these types of events online and in person to help you get feedback on the other side of things too, to see how you can touch and affect people, inspire them, move them in whatever way. So it's just feedback every step of the way. That's helping us to really to make our mark, and it's by the lives that are touched by what we do.
And can I expand on that?
Yeah.
What Joanna said, getting feedback from coming together as a team. When I wrote my first Sparkle Feathers book, and one of my friends asked me to come and do a keynote address at his church. And I went and I talked about how Sparkle Feathers was born and how this is a movement for parents and families. And then I got questions from the audience. Those questions were feedback to me because at first, my children's program was going to be for girls. And they said, no, boys need it too.
Hmm.
And then I said, young adults. No, the younger kids.
Right.
So, my audiences, when I go out and do keynote addresses and I speak, I'm getting feedback from the audience by the questions they ask me. So, keep that in mind. If you, as a business person, come on a podcast, a live stream like this, take those questions as a form of feedback and work that into your repertoire for the future. I still have the wall up of being somebody who failed at fertility. And
Mm.
I was afraid of children. But the feedback I got from my audience, the feedback I got from my readers, led me to get over that fear and overcome and break down that wall. So
Mm.
remember, it's not just feedback about the writing process, it's feedback about your brand, it's feedback about who you serve, it's feedback about how you serve them.
Oh,
Oh, that's
beautiful.
incredible too. And, I think about the community groups that I have where we meet weekly. That's like a big think tank of feedback that we give each other every week. I mean, right now we're working on social media pages and websites. So, depending on who's working on what project right now, putting someone in the hot seat and having everybody have a chance to take a look at it and say, this sentence isn't really clear. Or, oh, I really love the colors that you have going on here. It really gives me like this welcoming feeling. Like I just can't explain it. things like that really are going to help you pin down when things are working for you
Yeah.
and why they're not working for you. And that's the kind of perspective that you can't get on your own by yourself. So whether you join like a group, like for example, the anthology project that we have going on is a great opportunity for you to be around a bunch of people and get a bunch of feedback in a safe place where you know that everyone is constructively giving feedback, or find an accountability partner or a small group of people where this project that you're working on, you can get constant feedback throughout the whole creative development process.
It is. We need that to make adjustments, to tweak it so that we can serve people more effectively and meet their needs. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the people who are tuned in. Dr. Tanya Lee greeted
Hello,
us and
Tanya.
sent us some love. We appreciate that. And I love just the power of community when you stay consistent and you just show up in the same place at the same time, and people see, wow, they're still doing this. They're still contributing value to people as creatives, as authors, as speakers, as brand ambassadors. And then they join us and they, show some love and they encourage us. So I just wanted to to give some acknowledgement that, yeah, we're making some things happen by building this community online and with in-person events, and the editing process of really bringing these thoughts to life. And then what I love too about our anthology, it's so diverse. We are looking for men, women, children, non-binary individuals of all ages and backgrounds, because learning to believe in yourself and your power and what you can do, that applies to everyone. And we have stories, they could have been on the playground in preschool, and it could have been decades later as a grandparent or something. So it's just everyone in between. And so I am excited about the people that we are curating for this experience, and a powerful tool for all of us. And feedback, it's a necessary part of our growth.
So, Francine, we didn't exactly get to doing feedback on your story today, but I mean, what we talked about was the stuff that a lot of people aren't always talking about concerning feedback, why it's so important, how it can help you grow, how it can help you understand your audience better, how it can help you have more impact with the same project.
And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is aspiring authors who have never written and published are afraid they're not good enough. And
Hmm.
I'm here to tell you, when I started, and I still might not be good enough, but it's the feedback I get that I incorporate, that I rework, that I mold, that I nurture. That's how the end product turns out into something that started a movement. I didn't do this all by myself. Hundreds of people have given me feedback that turned this movement into what it is.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's what it takes. That's an excellent note. I think you put a cherry on top of this sundae. Yes, everything.
Well, that means that there's only one more thing to do. Joanna,
Yes, we want to thank you for tuning in and want to remind you that if you can conceive it, you can believe it and therefore achieve it. So from the head,
To the heart,
to the hands.
yes,
Yes,
you
you
you can
can.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap.
Woohoo!
See you guys all in the online community and check you guys back here at